All right, BTB, what's up? I'm about to split town here for a few weeks, and I've decided not to bring my computer. So I want to get a video out to you guys before I go, because this will be the last one until about the second week of June. So, anyways, but this is a good time to talk about something that people have asked about recently. And also, I've been meaning to do a video on this for a long time because it's actually kind of an interesting topic for me, and I've gotten some cool results by messing around with this stuff. But that is the kind of pros and cons of using a practice mute. So here we go. Practice mute, friend or foe. Bum, bum, bum. So let's start with the bad, okay? When I was going through my embouchure change, somewhere between 3 or 6 months into my embouchure change, and I went out of town for a week, and I was staying in a hotel, and I decided to use my practice mute. What I was doing was I was practicing in my hotel room, and I was doing just a comfortable volume. Just kind of like that, pretty soft, just because I didn't want anyone to hear me. So I did that for a week, and all of a sudden I was getting like some high Fs and stuff, and my range was starting to come back after the change. But the thing is that I got back into a rehearsal when I got back in town, and as soon as I tried to play something right at high C sharp in a lead trumpet style with a good amount of volume and getting some edge on the sound, my chops just could not hold together, and I was airballing even just there at high C. And that was how I learned my first kind of trial and error lesson about resistance. Now, before we go any further, before we talk about resistance, I am not totally satisfied with my understanding of resistance from a scientific standpoint. And the things that I know about resistance, I've kind of just learned in the line of fire. I just want you to know that my experience with resistance and what I'm going to relate to you guys is pretty much just anecdotal. So you're going to have to just try these things out for yourself and see what you like. But anyway, so that was my first big lesson, is that when I was playing on a instrument that had a ton of resistance and I was using that resistance, I was leaning up against the resistance because I was just playing basically just loud enough to get the pitch to come out of the horn with all of that additional resistance. What ended up happening was I became reliant on the resistance, and then my embouchure was not maintaining the strength needed to keep the top and bottom lip together while I was playing. Obviously, when there's air going through the aperture opens up to let the air pass through. But other than that, I like to think about my top and bottom lip touching. Okay, so they were not able to maintain the amount of resistance needed to do that because I was reliant on the practice mute. So that was the bad. So if you're a beginning trumpet player, or if you're going through an embouchure change, I don't necessarily recommend doing a lot of practicing in the practice mute because you can become dependent on that resistance. Now, on the flip side, you can actually use that resistance to your benefit, and this is something that I discovered on tour one year, just practicing in my hotel rooms. I don't know how I came to this conclusion or what, but I sort of figured out that if I play super, super, super loud with the practice mute in, loud enough to get this thing to sort of make a rattling noise, somehow, I don't know how exactly, but somehow it made a lot of really cool positive changes to my playing. Let me just show you real quick before we talk about it. So I'm playing really, really loud to get that thing to rattle like that. And what I found is that it got my chops really gripping the mouthpiece, and I had to support like crazy because I was using a ton of air to get this thing to happen. And after I had been playing for about, off and on for about maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I'd set my horn down, and then I'd come back after like a 15-minute break or so, and everything was super responsive, just super responsive. And it really kind of had warmed up the sound a lot too. So that's just a normal soft playing, and it feels really easy to get that response after blasting in the practice mute. What I found is that even if my chops were really stiff, like if I played a hard lead show and then I kind of would just get to where I could get that really, really loud sound with the practice mute, then everything was kind of like lined up, and I could just get, I wouldn't necessarily be able to do that right in the beginning of the morning. It might take me a few tries to get that open, rattly sound, but what I would do is play a note, set my horn down, play a note, set my horn down, and then once the mute was really shaking like that, I could just put my horn in the case and drive to rehearsal and ready to go. So this has been kind of interesting because I've sort of come across some other stuff that have mentioned things like this. If you go to Jay Friedman's website, he was the principal trombone player for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and he's got an article called Trumpet. And if you read that article, he mentions an exercise where you take an old horn and you put tuning slide grease, a real thick tuning slide grease, on the valves of the trumpet. And what happens is you get these valves that move really slow. And then he just suggests starting on a C in the staff and getting to where you're going from a C in the staff down to the B. And with the valves going real slow, you're supposed to maintain the connection of the sound through the really slow gliss of the valve. And what that ends up doing is that you have to use a lot more air to keep the sound going. Because when we change the valves, when we press down a valve, what we're doing is that for a split second, there's a change in the amount of back pressure from the trumpet. So this is open, and then this, when the valve is down, the air is passing through the horn. So in that sense, the tube is open when it's open, and when the valve is down, the tube is open. But all the in-between stuff, the tube is slightly closed. So what ends up happening is that there's a change in the amount of back pressure from the trumpet, and our subconscious picks up on it. It's too fast for us to really notice, but it's not too fast for the brain to notice. And then what happens is that we let up on our support because we can, and the sound will continue with us not needing to support so much with the embouchure, with the muscles of the torso, and with the air column that is meeting the resistance of the trumpet. So he uses that as an exercise for getting a more connected sound, because you have to use more air, and then what happens is you can transfer the sensation of playing through the glisses like that to playing the horn normally, and you'll get a more connected sound from note to note. However, he also talks about how the sound will warm up, and you'll have more of a fluid connection between your ranges, and you'll also be able to switch between an open playing sound and more of like a subtone, and just go back and forth between the two sounds really easily. And the reason I'm mentioning this article is because I want you guys to go read the article, because the effects, he says, of practicing like that with the tuning slide grease on the valves and really learning how to pummel the air, the results of that practice sound almost identical to what I've discovered that you get from playing with the practice mute in. So you can do the exact same exercise, starting on the C, go down to B, and just try to maintain the rattle of the mute. And it requires a tremendous amount of air to do that, and a tremendous amount of support to do that as well. And then from there, then you go down to the B flat, the A flat, G, F sharp, just like you're doing lip slurs, and then that's the end of the exercise. You don't even have to go through all of that, because even if you just get to where you can get a few notes to come out really, really loud like that, then you're going to get the benefit of doing it. So it's really something that I encourage you guys to check out. It's a little bit weird. I don't know too many people that talk about it. I think somewhere in the back of my mind, I thought I heard that Joe Alessi talked about doing bell tones like this a long time ago, but I haven't been able to find anything confirming that since. But also, I've been reading some of the Reinhardt stuff, and he's got an exercise called the stuffy mute drill, which is basically just a procedure that you go through with the practice mute in, and he uses it as a prescription for really stiff chops. So when I read that, I was like, okay, maybe there is something to this practice mute thing. So if you have to play in the practice mute, you don't necessarily need to view it as a necessary evil. I know some people don't like to do much with the practice mutes in, but this is something worth checking out, because it's really helped me a lot. And yeah, just get to where you can get the one note really, really loud and rattly like that, and then try to connect two notes. You can even do like a little line or a little melody that you're working on, but I'm going to recommend doing long notes, slow, just, you know, like whole notes, going from one whole note to the other, or one half note to the other. I don't think there's any real need to do this kind of thing fast, and only do it for about 10 minutes or so at a time, getting plenty of rest during that time, because you can really screw your chops up if you are not giving yourself adequate rest, just because you have to give it so much energy, and it takes a minute to kind of find the balance there. So play a few notes, set the horn down, play a note, set the horn down, until you kind of figure out how it feels for you to do that. So anyways, check that out, you guys. If there's anything you want me to talk about when I get back in town, be sure to leave it in the comments section. And, you know, give the video a thumbs up if you like it. If you've had any experience with doing this kind of stuff with the practice mute, leave that in the comment section below as well. And be sure to swing by Blackwell's Trumpet Basics, get on the mailing list. We got a lot of new cool stuff coming out this summer. And I will talk to you later.